Hello, my friends. Welcome to the show, Jack Chow on East West. So I say welcome to this discussion, you good ladies and gentlemen, whoever cares about California. Let's talk about it. So joining me in the discussion is my good friend, the mayor of a beautiful city of Yorba Linda, Mr. Craig Young.
Thank you, Jack. Good morning.
Welcome, Mayor, to the show.
It is a pleasure to be here again.
All right, good. Last time when Mayor Young was here, we pretty much talked about his part of what he has done during the past, even before or even during the city council time, and now talking about his mayorship, right? Now, the time of election, as we all know, it was announced last time that Mr. Mayor is running for the seat of Assembly of California. That's for 55th District.
That is right.
Right? Mm-hmm. Now, excuse me for saying this, I have to play tough a little bit because each time when we talk about election, right? We always check, especially for new runners, right? For incumbents, things are a little easier, right? For a new runner, we always do two aspects.
Good.
Aspect number one, what have you done in the past, right? And did you remember last time I gave you a pass? A good pass, right? About what you have done prior and on the seat of council and on the seat of mayorship, right? Now the second category is what are you going to do?
Right.
So now, like I said, in term election, we'll always ask two questions. Number one, what you have done, right? Number two, what are you going to do? Like that. Once given the opportunity, once set on a seat.
Right.
So what are you going to do, right? Now we're talking about California. California is the example of good, bad, everything, or medium, or extra medium, all kinds of problems. California takes the lead. And of course, California is examples of positive things too, right? Now, once you're there, what will you do as your first job, talking about your priority?
And I like the way you phrase it with priorities because too many people have too many priorities. And if everything's important, then nothing becomes important. So
exactly.
We have to have a top priority list. Right.
Sure. So on your agenda, though, I know you're right now preparing not only the campaign, but actually, how should we start, right? How should I start?
What is the first step?
Yeah, what is my first day in office? Like that kind, right? So what is your priority? How do you prioritize all those to-do lists?
Sure.
Right. I believe there's a long one, but like you said, if everybody's on top, there's nothing on top.
Right.
So what is yours on top?
And last time, as you said, we spoke about what I have done, and so now the question is, what will I do?
Yes.
But I think looking back is a great way to see how will that person probably continue to act in the future. So for me, and I believe we talked about it last time, Jack,
continuation.
for me, the reason to run for state assembly is I believe our government has grown too big, too controlling, and too expensive. So my first steps when I arrive in Sacramento will be to have that filter on. How do we eliminate the wasted spending that we have in California? And then I have to focus on our top three priorities.
Okay.
And for me, the top three priorities is we, number one, need to make sure that we as a community are safe.
All right.
Public safety is absolutely critical. Number two, we need to promote academic success. And three is the topic for today, transportation and infrastructure.
All right.
Transportation and infrastructure is vitally important. Who in our community is not impacted by traffic?
Sure. The major three jobs you have laid in front of yourself, right? Now, number one, public safety and security.
Right.
Number two, academic achievements.
That's right.
Right. And number three is your transportation, right? Before we touch that three, though, you were saying that our government is too big.
Yes.
Our government is too expensive.
Right.
So how are we saying, where did you get the impression or definition about a government as being too big?
Well, you look at how slow it responds. And the reason it responds as slow as it does is because it's not working efficiently. There are too many steps in a process to get a project completed.
All right.
If we can shrink the number of steps that it has to have, make government smaller, our projects become more efficient,
Sure.
they get done quicker, and therefore they are done more cheaper.
Yeah. No wonder there's a saying, to measure the size of your bureaucracy is just to go check about your steps that you have to go through in getting one thing approved.
Right.
Right?
Right.
There was one time people talking about signatures. And back in China, they talk about stamps.
Okay.
Right? How many chops of stamps you're talking
How
about?
many chops? Sure.
Yeah. And they say 80, 90 stamps, right? And here in California, the same thing. You're not talking about stamps, you're talking about signatures. Right? On and
same
on and
idea.
on and on.
Right.
Right. So it not only slows down the process, but also holds down the economy probably growth. Right. That's a good point. That's a good point. That indicates the government is bigger than we thought, by judging the fact that it has to go, anything has to go through channels after channels after channels after channel to get the very point.
Right.
Right. Okay. And then you're saying the government is too expensive. What's your definition about government being too expensive?
Well, too expensive to me means it's wasteful. You and I were chatting earlier. We spend money on things that we like, and that's good.
All right,
The
sure.
problem is that government spends money on things that are right in front of them without planning appropriately for the long term. And when we do that, we end up spending more than we really should spend.
Sure.
If we can look back again, back at what I've done at the city level, we had bonds that had been floated 10 years before I arrived on council, and so we were paying interest for a project. But as I looked financially at what we were doing, we were paying both the principal and the interest over the long term, and yet the cash that we had was earning a small percentage of what we were paying.
Yeah.
So government was becoming too expensive,
Right.
and merely moving the dollars that we had in the bank over to paying off the bonds, we were able to save millions
And
of
also,
dollars.
there's another way to look at the government for being too expensive. Correct me if I'm wrong, though. Are we committing ourselves, or have we committed ourselves to too many things during the too good times?
Absolutely.
And then, when the time is no longer that good, and we're still what? We're still committing ourselves to it, and we're kind of dead over. We're burdened over to those stuffs.
Right. Absolutely.
Is that a fact?
That is 100% of the fact. Yes. The problem we have, and specifically in the transportation area, is we're failing to plan for the long term.
All right.
And when we don't do that, we end up paying more for that project.
Yeah.
And the reason we don't plan for the long term is we have the short term other things that we're involved with because we don't have the priorities.
There is always, you're talking about, once again, it looks that the prioritization is the word today, right?
Right.
The same thing happened when I was a kid during the revolution.
Okay.
When our property, or my family, or our worth by the name of Zhao's,
Right.
were taken away. We were down to the very, very bottom.
Right.
And then there were 5 siblings, right? Everybody wants everything. Everybody comes to mom, say, hey, I need a bag. And then I need a pair of shoes.
Sure.
I need a pair of pants. My sister says, I need a skirt. I need an whatever, right? Mom always say, don't argue with me. I have my own plan. I know what to do, what not to do. And there's always one thing at the very bottom, my younger sister, who is the youngest of the family, she cries all the time. Mom says, well, you're the you're the youngest one. You're the smallest one. A crying baby always gets milk, okay? And well, just give her that, and you guys do not even argue like that kind of. So,
Right.
in the state of California, I seem to see the exactly same thing like my mom was facing, right? There were sometimes the government is trying to prioritize things, and there are sometimes there is the crying baby. Like we say, the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yes. Yeah.
All right?
Right.
And there's always a squeaky wheel coming on.
Right.
So we lost our directions
Right.
of spending. So do you think that's a problem?
I think it's absolutely a problem. And like you said, it goes back to prioritization. And the problem with people not being firmly rooted in their priorities is you have the young babies who will come and cry and create noise, and you want to help them. And helping them is a good thing.
Yeah.
There's an analogy, we can look backwards again at the city level. So for me at the city level, I have 3 priorities as mayor. And I try to make it simple to remember. It's A, B, and C. All things public safety. B is the bottom line, and C is our communication. Now, we have, and I won't call them babies because they're not babies, but we have people who come to us and say, oh, we want to have a new library, a great thing. We want to have a performing arts center.
Yeah.
We want to have a
Gymnasium.
That's right.
Auditorium.
Auditorium,
Yeah.
an equestrian center.
All right,
Those
sure.
are all great things. And the problem is when they come and cry and say that they want these things, we want to give it to them.
Yeah.
But you have to have a priority. And my priorities, A, B, C, the B is the bottom line.
Yeah.
We need to make absolutely certain before we take care of those wants that we've planned for our long-term needs.
Very good. Back to my audience. Today we're in a discussion of what we shall do with our California business. Joining me in the discussion is my good friend, the mayor of Yorba Linda City, Mr. Craig Young. He is ready right now, he is running, as a matter of fact, for the assembly seat, which will be left open by Mr. Kurt Hagman. He's termed out.
Right.
He's looking for something even higher. But anyway, I'm not saying which is higher than which. I'm talking about an important seat needs some important people to make important decisions so that we can have keep our fingers crossed for some better hopes. Other than that, we don't. So let's take a short moment now. When we come back, we'll find out among the three items, among his ABC, how shall we see exactly the same thing happens with the state?
Very good.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.